Almost every brand promises that their waterproof jackets can lock out the rain yet still allow sweat to breathe through. But is this actually possible? Now in this video I'm going to explain why the laws of physics mean that so-called breathable waterproof fabrics are a total myth. No matter how much money you spend, there's likely not a single waterproof jacket out there that can stop you from getting sweaty when riding hard in the rain, and this is why. A big thanks to Sava for sponsoring this part of the video and allowing us to get their Sava A7 very wet in the process. Head to the link in the description to find out more about the bike. First, a little history though, because it's important to know how modern waterproof fabrics are constructed in order to understand why there's a big problem with the way that they're marketed. Now, if you know anything about waterproof clothing, then you've probably heard of a little brand called Gore-Tex. Using the expanded polytetrafluoroethylene it invented in 1958, Gore-Tex created a membrane with a microporous structure and applied this to make a waterproof fabric in the late 60s. Now you all know the marketing spiel. Gore-Tex is waterproof because the holes in the membrane are too small for water droplets to pass through, but it's still breathable because the holes are just big enough to let water vapor escape. In practice, this membrane is usually paired with an inner and outer layer of woven fabric in order to protect it from dirt and scratches, and then a durable water repellent, a hydrophobic coating, is typically applied to the outer layer to prevent it from saturating with water or wetting out, as you may have heard it called. Of course, there are variations on this theme. Gore's Shakedry jackets, for example, got rid of that outer layer and the hydrophobic treatment and just had the membrane act as the outermost layer. But what's important though is knowing how these membranes work and, crucially, how they don't. It is true that an ePFTE membrane can simultaneously be impermeable to water and permeable to water vapor. However, the conditions under which water vapor will diffuse from one side to the other are quite specific, and typically they don't occur when you need them most. As with any gaseous diffusion, water membranes rely on a partial pressure gradient to transfer water vapor from one side of the fabric to the other. For your sweat to breathe through your fabric of a waterproof jacket, for example, the air outside the fabric must be less humid, meaning it has a lower concentration of water vapor than on the inside. Now when it's raining though, the outside humidity can be 85 to 90%, meaning the air is almost completely saturated with water vapor. As a result, there isn't a partial pressure gradient between the inside and the outside of the fabric, and the water vapor can't breathe out from within until the humidity inside builds up to the point that one is created, and by which point you will by definition be very sweaty. So, in reality then, breathable waterproof fabrics are both breathable and waterproof, and, this is the bit that really matters, not at the same time. They can breathe when it's dry and they can keep water out when it's wet, but if you're working hard enough to induce sweating when it's humid outside, then you are still going to get wet on the inside, no matter how expensive your waterproof jacket is. At this point, you might be feeling that not only have brands been lying to you, but that we in the media have been lying to you as well. If the laws of physics say waterproof jackets can't keep rain out and breathe well at the same time, then why are there thousands of reviews plastered all over the internet, all quoting outlandish breathability figures and recycling the same old tropes about how amazing this stuff is? The simple truth is, I think we've all been getting it wrong. Now, I've been lucky enough not to test many waterproof jackets since I joined BikeRadar a few years ago, so I don't personally have loads of skin in the game. But I think it is fair to say that had I been given a load of waterproof jackets to test at some point, then I probably would have fallen victim to the same confirmation bias that leads so many people to come to the wrong conclusions. Now obviously, when we're testing things, we always try to go in without any biases or preconceptions. But if the conventional wisdom says that a £300 jacket does something, and everyone else believes that it does too, and has believed that for a really long time, then it's really difficult not to have that as the default assumption. It's a bit like how 10 years ago everyone thought that a bike had to be light in order to be fast, or that having super stiff cycling shoes made a genuine difference to power transfer. You can check out the link in the description if you want to watch a video that I made on that topic a few years ago. Now, does that excuse it? No, of course not. We should have done better and we shouldn't have taken this for granted. But it's worth remembering that ultimately we're all human here and we're always going to make mistakes sometimes. From my perspective, the important thing is that when we're presented with new evidence like this, we don't just ignore it. Instead, we should use it to improve the way we work and produce better reviews in the future. So, what does this all mean for us as cyclists? And is there really anything that we can do to stay dry and comfortable when riding in the rain? Now, whether it can breathe or not, a waterproof membrane will keep the water out when it's raining. But if you can, it's best to avoid getting too sweaty. Now, that may mean opening up zips or vents while climbing, for example, to increase ventilation and dump heat when you don't need it. Even on dry days though, when EPFTE membranes breathe best, you'll likely be better off with a windproof jacket than a waterproof one. This is because windproof jackets are typically made solely from woven fabrics with correspondingly larger holes between the fibres and don't feature a waterproof membrane. For riding in changeable conditions, or if you know that you won't be able to avoid sweating on a ride though, it's also worth considering whether a traditional hardshell waterproof jacket is the best option. In these scenarios, a softshell jacket or a jersey with a water repellent fabric might be a better option for keeping you warm and comfortable. Way back when I used to do road races, for example, I used to swear by my Castelli-Gabba jersey for rainy days. It's not properly waterproof in inverted commas, but it did do a great job of keeping me warm, comfortable and dry enough. And it's also way more aerodynamic than a jacket. Nowadays, of course, I'm old and over the hill and I'm not pinning on a number and putting my body on the line on a wet Sunday morning in March. But if you are, then in my experience, unless it's absolutely pouring, then these kinds of jackets are great. One thing complicating all of this stuff is that both the European Union and United States have recently placed restrictions on the manufacturing and use of perfluorinated compounds, or PFCs, which is the stuff that PTFE, ePTFE and DWR coatings are typically made from. These chemicals, often referred to as forever chemicals because they don't degrade in the natural environment, can be highly toxic under certain scenarios with links to cancer and a wide range of other ailments. As a result of these bans, many manufacturers of waterproof garments are phasing out the use of PFCs where possible. Gore, for example, says it has set the goal of eliminating PFCs of environmental concern from the life cycle of its consumer fabrics products. Now, there was a little sleight of hand there, which you might have picked up on if you were paying attention. That's right, Gore says its goal is to eliminate PFCs of environmental concern, so not just PFCs in general. Now, according to Gore, these are highly fluorinated, small enough to be bioavailable and persistent, by which it means these are the problematic ones. Notably though, Gore's ePTFE membranes aren't included in this category, which it created in partnership with Greenpeace, as it says the chemicals in these membranes are inert or unreactive and therefore aren't toxic. Now that feels quite convenient at a glance, but it's fair to say that I'm not a chemist, so I can't tell you whether this is or isn't a fair assessment of things. What is clear though is that some manufacturers, such as Patagonia, are aiming to just go PFC-free altogether, as the manufacturing and disposal of PFC-infused materials still necessitates creating these so-called forever chemicals, and it's obviously not great for the environment to just carry on doing that now that we know they're an issue. Of course, if you already have a waterproof jacket made with PFCs, then fear not. Like the Teflon in a non-stick pan, these are still considered safe to use under normal circumstances. Just try not to set it on fire. While it may have been made with some nasty chemicals, the best thing that all of us can do to protect the environment is to look after the kit we already have. After all, if you discard a PFC jacket in favour of a new eco-friendly one, then that old jacket doesn't just magically disappear and the forever chemicals it's made from will still exist somewhere. Likewise, if you don't have a waterproof jacket and you want or you need to buy one, then you might consider shopping second hand. Often, a wash with re-waterproofing solution and a quick spin in the tumble dryer can breathe new life into old waterproof fabrics. At the end of the day though, it's worth being realistic about the performance that any waterproof jacket can offer. Spending hundreds of pounds or dollars on something might get you a better designed and better fitting jacket, but no amount of cash is going to get you something that can overcome physics. Before you go, I just want to say a quick thanks to Charles Ross, lecturer in specialist performance sportswear design at the Royal College of Art, Thomas Plummer, the head of apparel at Madison, and Tim Wilson, managing director of Stormcare, all of whom contributed their expertise. And if you want to hear more about this topic from those three, there's a link in the description to a podcast that my colleague Tom Marvin recorded with them earlier this year, or you can read more on this topic at BikeRadar.com. And once again, a massive thanks to Sava for sponsoring this video. If you want to learn more about the bike, check out the link in the description. But what do you think about all of this though? Have you ever been disappointed by the breathability of a waterproof jacket? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you like this video, why not watch this one?